6 p.m. on March 4th, 2026. I call this organizational meeting of the South Burlington School Board to order. Because we do not yet have an elected clerk tonight, I will confirm attendance and quorum. When I say your name, please say present. Mr. Abshir. Present. Ms. Williams.
Present.
Mrs. Lawrence.
Here,
Mr.
present.
Mr. Boyer. Ms. Boyer. Mrs. Hoffman.
Present.
Ms. Galvez. Okay, until a clerk is elected, I ask Laura to note motions and votes. If there's no objection, we will proceed that way. All right, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We will move to announcements. Does anybody have announcements? There was an executive session scheduled today that was canceled, so we are starting the meeting at 6 instead of at 5. All right, hearing none, let's move on. The next item is review and approval of tonight's agenda. Are there any changes requested by board members?
We can get rid of filling the possible vacancy. So that's good.
Yep, we can do that. Okay, so is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended where we take out the discussion item filling possible vacancy on school board?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion is approved. I will preside over this meeting only long enough to conduct the election of the board chair. Once the chair is elected, I will turn the meeting over immediately. Nominations for chair. Oh, first, welcome and introduction to the school board member. I want to make sure I do that. Welcome. I'd like to welcome everybody here to the school board meeting and introduce our newly elected board members. We have 3 that were re-elected: Michelle Boyer, Dan Boyer, and Emily Hoffman. Congratulations to all of you and thank you for your service. Melissa Galvez, thank you so much for stepping up to be put yourself out there as a writing candidate. We're thrilled with the experience you bring and your knowledge of the school district. So welcome to all of you. Okay, we will now move to the nomination or the election of the chair. Nominations for chair are now open. Board members may nominate any eligible member, including themselves.
I would like to nominate Shane Abshir.
Thank you. Are there further nominations? Hearing no further nominations, if there's no objection, nominations are closed. Nominations are closed. If there is no objection, we will elect Seamus Abshir as chair by unanimous consent. You are elected. And I am handing to you the gavel. 3 minutes. Did you notice that? 3 minutes.
The next item on the agenda is the election of the vice chair. And as Joe said, anybody can be nominated and you can nominate yourself.
I'd like to nominate Dan Warren.
Jen Lawrence is nominated. Are there any other nominations? Can we close nominations? Is there any objection to closing nominations? We close nominations and if there's unanimous consent to make Jen the vice chair, do we have any objections?
Can Jen object? No activation.
Congratulations, vice chair. The next item on the agenda is the election of the clerk. And we'll start, nominations can be of any member and members can nominate themselves.
Okay, Laura Williams.
Laura Williams is nominated. Do we have any other nominations? Do we have consent to close the nominations? Hearing no objections, the nominations are closed. Do we have unanimous consent to elect Laura Williams to be the clerk? Hearing no objections. Congratulations, clerk.
Congratulations.
Together again. Together.
The next item on the agenda is to designate a school board member to sign contracts on behalf of the board. So I think that last year this might have been you.
I was signing, yeah.
So, I would entertain a motion to designate Laura Williams as the school board member to sign contracts on behalf of the board.
Second.
First we need a move. Do you move?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I thought you were moving. Yes, I move.
Okay,
I'll second.
Emily moves,
Second.
Alyssa seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Laura Williams is the designated school board member to sign contracts on behalf of the board. And the next item on the agenda is to set the 2026 to 2027 meeting schedule. So this was, I believe, sent out by Delina a few weeks ago. And I did not see any issues with it. Were other board members able to review it? Do they remember reviewing it, even if you did review it?
Oh, gotcha. You
Is there any, are there any thoughts on the meeting schedule? I'm gonna put it on my screen just so that we,
Great, thank you.
just so that we are super sure about that.
You can find it.
It's. There you go.
So it's now on the screen.
So the only two that deviate from the first and third are the July 8th, presumably, for the new hires. And the to be determined board retreat. Is that correct? And the date change for the August 12th, so that looks like it's the second week instead of the first week because of the week the 8th.
The only thing that I would comment on with this is, you know, would be really helpful is if we could also have, when our steering committee meetings are with the city. That would be really nice to have included on this so that we can prepare. Because sometimes those come up and they're not on our regular, if they're not on our schedule, it might be something we miss. So I don't know if that's something that we can integrate into this, but I mean, I don't take exception to the dates, that I just think it's a helpful thing
Yeah.
to have on there.
Okay.
Would be my only comment.
Take it out of that, go. Make sure, we get those set and then on their, website, and let everybody know.
All right, go ahead.
I think if anybody has like a conflict with one of the days, it's probably fine. Right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Do we, assume that any board training is happening during a regular scheduled meeting or?
In the past, we scheduled them ad hoc, they weren't in the schedule, right?
Right.
Except for
Not
that
really,
trade, except for that.
Yeah, Delana, they mentioned that there's almost always a summer retreat in July.
There should be
Or some training, yeah, I agree.
I think we usually kind of talk about it ahead of time, so that way we know there is no conflict and that people's summer schedules and all that. And so I do think there will be that training, but it hasn't always been in this list of meetings.
And that's probably fine, because the important thing for this is that the public can come to these meetings, and it's, of course, they can also come to our training, but. Probably that's important for them.
So these are intended to be regular meetings and then special meetings and training, those are all separately defined.
These are the regular meeting.
All right, I would entertain a motion to set the 2026-2027 meeting schedule according to the draft meeting schedule that was sent out by Delana.
I move.
Laura moves, Jen seconds. Any discussion?
Just the January 20th, it's my husband's 50th birthday, so I probably won't be here. You won't let me.
Start planning now.
Oh, we're already planning, yeah.
All those in favor?
I'm
Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is comments from the public. So at our school board, there are 3 opportunities for the public to comment. Right now, during comments from the public about any topic, whether it's on the agenda or not. Another opportunity is before the board takes action on an action item, but only on the topic being actioned. And the third opportunity is during specially warned community forums, but only on the topics warned for that community forum. The board will not respond to public comments except in a specially designated community forum. And only if the comment or the question is on a topic warned for that community forum. And this is not a community forum. You'll be given up to 3 minutes. Please do not violate anybody's privacy. An official complaint or grievance cannot be filed during public comment. Do we have any public comment online?
There's somebody.
Daisy does. Daisy's been homesick this week.
Oh, Daisy, I'm sorry, her hand's over there.
Would you recognize Daisy? Yeah.
It's a hand floating.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Yes, I'm homesick with bronchitis and pink eye of all things, but I wanted to make sure to take the opportunity to say thank you so very much for being willing to come back to the board, and we look forward to working with the new board. And I want to say congratulations on a successful vote for both the budget and the all of our items on the ballot. So thank you so much for your commitment and dedication to the schools, and we look forward to another successful year.
Daisy, feel better.
All right. The next item on the agenda is the student representative report.
Talent night, which is a class competition at the high school where each grade puts on a 15 to 20-minute skit. They're in charge of building their own set, getting costumes, and writing the script, is coming up next week with shows on both Friday the 13th and Saturday the 14th. More information about tickets and show times can be found on the South Burlington High School website or on the Key Club Instagram page. We'd love to see the community come support all the high school students. The High School Student Council will also be hosting a blood drive next week on Wednesday, March 11th. Thank you to everyone who signed up to give blood. Lastly, many students in the district have pieces chosen to be displayed at the Champlain Valley Art Show in the University Mall. So their work will be displayed until March 19th. So congratulations to everyone whose art was selected, and community go see the art in the mall. And that's all I have for you.
Is there any board comment or question?
If you didn't sign up to give blood, you can still just give blood at any time during the day.
I'm assuming, I tried to figure that out today and I couldn't get a clear answer for you guys, so, if there is any questions, you could always reach out to Burke, I'm sure, community members.
Is it really popular though? I know in Essex. we
Yeah.
Do that. It's so wildly
Oh, that's great.
popular.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah,
Which is why I'm
Cannot
not sure
drop in.
Okay.
if it's open to
What
the
day
community.
is it?
Wednesday next week,
Yeah,
it's,
they love it.
yeah,
My daughter still gives because she's 24, because she did it here.
Yeah.
She still gives blood often.
That's great.
It's awesome. It's great.
Generally speaking, they encourage you to make it a point, they don't necessarily take walk-ins at any time, this visit time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, that's true too.
All right. The next item, thank you very much. The next item on the agenda, there's a series of action items. The first action item is a revision to policy E2 security cameras. So this is the third reading of this change to the security cameras policy. It's also, I think, the 8th time that we've talked about or that we've mentioned that we're talking about the video camera policy at schools, because it's obviously a sensitive issue. Last month, we changed our executive limitations so that the security camera policy would only be as restrictive as required by law. Previously, it was more restrictive than the law. And as a follow-on to that executive limitation change, there was a necessary change to the actual written procedure policy E2. So I will bring that up on my screen. And then I would ask Joe if you would go through just a couple changes that are presented here.
So the most significant change is currently the way the process works is if a principal needs to review footage, they have to put in a request from there's a whole committee of folks they send an email to, and we approve it, and then it goes to the tech guys who get it queued up and recorded, and then they send it back, and it can be cumbersome and time consuming. And so this policy, as well as the limitations that you've already approved, remove that middleman. It trusts our administrators to judiciously use the cameras when necessary for reasons of safety, so that they can get to work right away when they need to start reviewing if something, a foul went on. It does not give that same latitude to law enforcement. Law enforcement would still need permission from me and the chief to view our cameras. And finally, it would require, again, right now, people need to ask permission. They would not need to anymore, but what they would need to do is every time they did review footage, they would need to log that. So we knew who was looking, what they were looking for, those sorts of things, just so we'd have a log to keep ourselves honest.
So the two changes are in this section and in this section. And here is the section that requires, that switches it from being something where you have to ask for permission in advance to being something where you have to log after the fact that you did. And then this section is where it allows administrators, director of operations or transportation manager to do those viewings without the prior approval of the superintendent.
And so those folks would be trained on the system, and this is what is typical. What I've found is it's typical all across Vermont, and it was typical every place that I've worked also.
Yeah.
Administrators have that right, because it's quicker, and it can play a safety factor depending on what it is that they're looking for.
Is there any board comment or question about this? Right. I would entertain a motion to approve the changes to policy E2 security cameras as shown in the board materials for today's meeting.
I need to approve.
Laura moves. Michelle seconds. Is there any discussion? And this is an action item, so we will be taking public comment on it. Is there anyone online?
Nope.
Okay, all those in favor? The motion passes, the policy is approved. The next item on the agenda is to consider the 2026-2027 academic calendar. I will pull that up on my screen. So, Joe, would you kind of take us through any of the?
Yeah, so this is a calendar that is very similar to the calendar that we have this year. Just a reminder that we are relatively hamstrung with having any sort of local control over this because of state law that requires regional districts in a certain region, they have 175 common student days, and we tend to have more student days than most districts around us, and therefore there's not a lot of latitude for us to make any kind of changes. So it's pretty common. We start at the last week of August. August 26th is our first day for all students, and we will be done. Our students will be done by June 11th, which will also be high school graduation. And the typical breaks are there, a week in April, a week in February. The winter break around Christmas is shorter because just because of how the holiday falls, and the nothing more really unusual than what I've stated here. Well, I guess I should mention that we have committed to having no after school and evening activities on some of these some holidays, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Eid. We have committed to not having after school or evening activities on those days also.
Can you explain by, so it's state mandated, but we have more days? I don't understand.
Just, yeah, so the state mandates that different regions of school districts, and we're in the Champlain Valley region, create a calendar where they have 175 days that are common, school days that are common. We happen to have our students come to school 180 days. So I'll give you one example. Like Friday, the 4th of September is a day off. That was a day that I fought against, quite frankly, with the superintendent's group and lost that fight. And we even went to them with a appeal, and that was denied because they have the say over what the calendar is. More importantly, I think is this: we've had a lot of internal discussions about the Wednesdays, the early release and late start Wednesdays, where we do a lot of professional development. What I've heard from many community members and parents is that they hate those days. It's hard to find sitters, or childcare, whatever it might be. It's inconvenient. I know it's tough for transportation, all of those things. So we had discussions internally about, well, why don't we make those days full days? Because we already go 5 more school days than everybody else. Why don't we knock it down to maybe 178 or 177 school days? Well, the answer to that is because we have to have 175 common days. And because every other school has that as a school day, those Wednesdays, we can't not go to school on those days because then we would not be compliant with the 175 common days that other folks have. The reason you're able to do an early release and a late start is because if you are in school for more than 50% of the day, it counts as a school day. So that's some of the uniqueness around the calendar.
that helps, Joe, because one of my comments was, I wasn't keen on the last day of school being the same day as graduation. You know, I mean, graduation is usually in the morning, so that's gonna be a gimme that kids are gonna be missing that day of school largely. Right? I mean, or if you've got kids that happen to have a sibling that's graduating, they're not gonna be in school because they're gonna go to the graduation, so. Is graduation day also a common day across the district? Is it the same or does that change?
That is a common day, across the districts, I believe.
I don't think, no,
Maybe
because
it's works. It's from-
no, it's not.
Okay.
Graduation is scattered.
Yeah, it's all, they
Yeah.
have,
Not graduation, but how about the last day of school? That's, are we later than everybody else because we have 180 days?
Oh, I'm not sure about the last day of school this
I
year.
don't
I
know.
don't think so.
no, I don't think so, no,
Yeah.
and they have to stagger graduation because we do it in the same
Yeah.
venues.
Right.
Then-
So Essex is always a little bit later and.
I mean, but I just think that, cause that was some feedback I had heard before, and I recall, is that there was. A graduation and then there was another day of school, like the following week, which is
We sometimes go 3 or 4 days.
after graduation.
Yeah, and because if there's a snow day, they add on.
And we are this year, we are going a few days after
Yeah.
graduation, so I think that's actually an improvement, that the last day of school will actually be graduation day. We do anticipate it will be below attendance, but. I hate to say this as a school superintendent, it's the last day of school, I don't know that they're learning polynomials on that day, you know what I mean? So,
Out of curiosity, how do other districts do their in-service days? Do they also have these half days that we have?
but because, some of them, because they have the only 175 student days, they make full days and it fits within their calendar. They also do, there are other districts that do partial days.
We do
Some-
partial days on Wednesdays.
Like,
Yeah.
it varies, it varies.
And what is the reasoning behind us having 5 more days than other school districts?
I don't know the history. My guess is because we value student contact time with teachers.
Do we make up snow days?
Here's the other thing, there's a great question. Because we are required by the state to have 175 student days, we're able to have 5 snow days without having to tack them on at the end of the year. That's the other
I
thing.
think the reasoning is that snow days aren't made up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in Essex, we do make every snow day up.
So
So
there's
our day,
175 student
Yeah.
day schools, if they have a snow day, they come 1 extra day in the summer.
I wanted to talk about it here because I know last year we talked about this on my first day and I was like, whoa, what? And I
Yeah.
didn't really notice that we ended on like a Monday or
Right.
and it was just bizarre and I didn't understand the extra days
but
and
it's also after exams, and so some of the kids aren't there, and it's like professional development days.
I think what's interesting or what's
It's
unique
hard.
here, again, to my experience, I'm learning a lot coming here. This is the calendar, the lack of autonomy over a district school calendar is really unique in my experience. And it's also really unique that the last student day is also the last teacher day. Typically, in places that I've been in Ohio, the last student day is on a Thursday and then teachers work on a Friday to get their rooms cleaned up, to have their service or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
That's unusual here.
was there any talk about
About
using those extra 5 days as in service and then going to we'll just make up our snow days?
We did talk about reducing our student days, but every day that we thought this would be a great day to not have a half day or just to do in-service
Right.
was already matched with somebody else's 170. The 175 days.
No, I get that, but
yes,
if other people are taking full days off, wouldn't there be other days in those calendars, like say, I don't know, I'm just saying Milton takes like 2 in-service days a year. Why couldn't we just try to match up with their in-service
So a
days?
certain amount of days we have to have
Yeah,
in service.
Those days just aren't, they just don't match up with what
Yeah.
our current student days are. They will do theirs before kids come or after kids come, at the beginning of the year, the end of the year, or whatever it might be. I know I'm maybe not as being as clear as I can, but we wanted to do everything we could to get rid of some of the half days
No, I
and
appreciate
have full days. and it
conversation, I'm just wanna have it so
Yeah.
people can hear it,
And
because
I mean, I hear
Right.
the rumor is that, next year, the whole state is supposed to be on a common calendar, but we'll see if that happens.
So there's no way that we can change it now to say last day of school is gonna be June the 10th. We can't change that.
But,
It's because we don't make this calendar.
yeah, I mean, I don't know that. I would have to look at all the other calendars, to see if those are common days or not. And then the question is, right? Because the contract has 189 work days for staff and 180 school days for kids. Does that impact that? I mean, I would think the expectation would be, okay, we're not having kids, but we are gonna have staff members working.
Cause I would just say, you know, cause my thought would be. Yeah, I mean, it would be nice to do it June 10th and have it be, that's your last day of school, bye-bye, and then the kids graduate on the 10th and.
Yeah,
everybody's out of
it never
school.
works that way, though, I've been there 16 years and I have yet to have
And
that.
I mean,
We always
again,
go
I'm
like
sorry,
3 or 4 days after.
I can't
It's
answer that
very frustrating.
intelligently like right now, but I do know that a whole bunch of people spent a whole bunch of time trying to make all those and we all just kept banging our heads saying that can't do it, can't do it, can't do it because of this.
Is there any interest on, oh, go ahead, Al.
Side question, this year with the like 3 extra days that are happening, are those common days? And that's,
I don't know the answer to that because it's common, it's maybe, yeah, not tenure.
And if you don't take the snow days, cause we've only had 1 snow day, how does that factor in?
it doesn't.
It doesn't, just that's the end date.
Doesn't.
So what's nice about SB though is that the end date is the end date. Again, at ethics, our end date is never what it says it is.
Right.
I always count, so if you are a teacher, as if you want to plan, don't plan on a trip, gotta wait a week out, because. We've had
Depends
like
on the weather, right.
by the way, we've had 3 or 4 days added on at the end of the year,
Okay,
so I'd rather have like a firm date than one that keeps going.
okay.
I do appreciate all the effort put into it and then trying to explain it because it is confusing and it seems like maybe we could just do this, but
Yeah,
it's
it
good to
is.
hear that.
Yeah,
the
and I
time
understand the
and-
frustration
but,
and
yeah.
I shared the frustration coming here where, you know, I was being maybe too sarcastic with my colleagues saying, you know, where I come from, superintendents are allowed to run their own district. They don't have to worry about running other people's districts. Yeah, that's interesting.
So, is there interest on the board on asking the superintendent to follow up on a couple different questions before we approve this and moving this approval to the next meeting? We're never forced to approve anything.
I'd be interested to know, like, and maybe that's already been discussed, but I'd be curious to know if there's any way we could do that. If we could.
Will it significantly impact your operations if we approve this on the
It
next
will
meeting?
not significantly impact my operations. I know that I've been getting lots and lots of emails and phone calls from families saying, when does school start? We're planning our vacation. And I tell them I'm pretty darn sure the first day of school is going to be August 26th. So that's the only issue. Again, again, because I can't recall all of the discussions and meetings, I think what you're gonna find is I'll come back and say, listen, we
Can't do it.
can't, but I'm willing to do it.
And your question is, can the last day of school be on the 10th and then the graduation's on the 11th? That's your main
That's the only
question.
question that
Yeah.
I had. Because, yeah, and it just seems that we know going into it, you're gonna have dismal attendance on that day because there's gonna be kids graduating, there's gonna be kids going to graduation, there's gonna be a whole bunch of unexcused, plus if you've got kids that are in other schools that are going to their siblings, I mean, that's the reason I'm asking.
It was a
So,
long time
just-
ago, but I don't remember learning much on my list.
No, I know, that's it, right?
That's true, but there's always the last day.
Right, because
You know what I
that's the day
mean?
before.
There's
yeah.
always a last day, so.
It's
If
just
they're
how
gonna
it
have a
is.
last day when everybody is
It's
going
like
down
a
to
lot of-
graduation, that's not a
Yeah.
bad last day.
We have the heat pump, so it won't be too
I
bad.
don't-
Maybe we'll get good attendance because.
I don't wanna create a huge lift for this, if it's something that it's just gonna come back like, yeah, there's really nothing we can do about it. But I'm just recognizing the fact that we know there's probably gonna be dismal.
I have the
Attendance.
CBSA calendar right here.
Someone look at it.
So there's a couple of things. One is that we have the last day on graduation so that staff can go to graduation.
Oh,
And the tenth is a common day.
that's good to know.
Yeah,
Oh, no, June 11th is also a common day.
yeah.
It's common day.
And we've had like, we spend a long time talking about this as an administrative team. Oh, thank you.
So it's not necessarily that they can go, it's because, if we require
If we-
staff to go to
yes.
graduation, then it has to be on a school day.
Yes, thank you.
I see.
Yes.
Okay. Okay,
And
gotcha.
I think K-12 staff should be required to go, not just high school staff.
So you have half day of school and then graduations in the afternoon.
Or
Well-
we don't have, we just have graduation on the last day.
Because
Yeah,
the
it's
high
like
school
typical-
won't be there on the Friday, right? Cause all the high school staff will be at graduation,
Okay.
so it's only elementary and middle school in session.
Well, but it doesn't say that. It says June 11th, last day, elementary dismissal, middle school dismissal. Yeah, it just says last day of school. That the dismissals, doesn't say when high school dismissal was. So my assumption was, oh, high school dismissal must be at the regular time.
No, high school dismissal, high school students do not have school that day.
Yeah, and staff go to
And
graduation.
staff go to
So it's,
graduation.
And then
I should say this, they have a day of school on the calendar that we send to the
Yeah.
state.
Because they are required to go to graduation. Elementary and middle have early dismissal,
Counts as a
so
day.
those teachers
But we already-
also have like a room time. right?
gotcha.
So
But
all
then-
staff are
Now the
required to go.
details come out.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that day, the June 11th next year is a common day. It's one of the 175 common days that we do not have the ability to. We would have to ask for a waiver from the superintendents and they would say, no, go back to Ohio, buddy.
Sorry, I should have said that earlier. when you guys
Okay.
said yes, I just don't know where
And I
Thank
do
you,
think it's
guys.
good because at Essex, we are not required to go to graduation, which is why it's on Saturday. And so though, at least here, we are acknowledging that kids aren't, people can go to graduation, whereas Essex, I can't. It's on a Saturday, so. They're not required, they don't pay us to go there. Most, a lot of people do, but.
So can we approve this?
Yes, yes, I have no.
Can I ask one more question? I, in no way am I intending to, start a holy war or anything here, but I'm just curious why Good Friday isn't noted as a no after school evening activities. It is an in-service day. It's not clear if that's kids come in the morning or go in the afternoon. I'm not sure.
Sometimes, it's my experience that the school will do a no activities after school, not even if it's not on the calendar.
I mean, I can just tell you what the
Really good-
discussions were internally was, that. That traditionally, the calendars have always gone around Christian holidays. The push was to, let's consider all of the other, folks that we serve. We take we don't call it Christmas break, but we take a week around Christmas because it's Christmas. And so the thought there was, if you want to do anything internally, go ahead, but as a region, we are not going to require that to be a no, a
I
no
understand it
activity.
not being that school, but just the after school activity thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not gonna make a big deal out of it, but I just wanted to
Yeah.
know what that rationale was.
I would entertain a motion.
Oh, sorry, hold
Oh,
on.
go ahead.
Holly, did you have something you wanted to? No, you were able to say it. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I would entertain a motion to approve the 2026 to 2027 South Burlington School District academic calendar. As presented in the board materials for the meeting.
I move.
Laura moves,
Second.
Jen seconds. Any discussion? And this is an action item, so we will be taking public comment on it.
Nothing online.
All right, all those in favor? The motion passes. So the next item, we grouped all the action items together. So this is a bit of a different thing, is something that the superintendent has told us is that in order to have a strategic plan, we first need to have gone through our ends and made sure that they are up to date. And so the action item here is to charge a committee to coordinate the board to update the ends policy. So that is likely to be a multi-month, that could take 6 months, that could take 8 months. It involves many community meetings. It involves significant drafting of documents, or at least, collecting suggestions for the drafting of documents. And so, the idea would be to have a committee that's in charge of quarterbacking and coordinating all of that work, getting things on the calendar, making sure that we hit our deadlines, all that stuff. So is that something that the board would consider taking action on tonight?
This would be just to charge a committee. We're not necessarily volunteering to do it or getting people on it. Are we just saying we're making one? It seems like something I know I personally would want to just kind of consider, because it is a heavy lift of like if I would be able to join.
If we wanted to, we could nominate people tonight. If the board is comfortable doing that, if there are members who are willing to do it and people feel comfortable with them doing it. I would say that if we don't want to nominate people tonight, then we should kick it into the next meeting. I would volunteer for that committee, so at least there's one person. No,
I was gonna say, Michelle would be great. I didn't want to volunteer you.
No, for the sake of-
I do have a question though about, so it kind of the chicken and egg, right?
Yeah.
And strategy ends. What about vision? I'm wondering, because I think that we may need to have a vision statement to drive forward of those things. And I have been looking at a few of them. With some thoughts on how to make that vision more action oriented to part of the conversation that initiated this whole discussion, which is that the ends as written are really challenging to talk about in terms of monitoring outcomes. Anyway, I'm curious what folks think about.
Isn't there a vision piece as part of the ends policy?
I think some people group it with strategy and some people group it with, I mean, I don't think so. There's the 1.0, which is the overall, I mean.
so I guess I should have provided more context for why we're talking about this to begin with, and that's that. The school board has chosen to use a methodology called policy governance. That's a voluntary thing that the board has done to help organize our work. And as part of that, we're supposed to set ends, which are kind of like goals and limitations. And we say, hey, superintendent, you can do anything you want to achieve these ends, except the things that we rule out with the limitations. And so our ends are something that were, I think, last updated in 2014. It's on the school website under the policy governance tag. And the question that I hear you raising, Michelle, is whether revising our ends also means revising the district's vision. I would expect that it would.
I see the global end statement 1.0. I see that synonymous with vision, even though it doesn't use that word. That to me is the vision that the board sets.
Can you read that?
Yes. Global end statement 1.0. Students successfully complete their education from the South Burlington School District ready for their next step. They will show cultural and academic competence appropriate to grade and developmental capacity. All graduates will be prepared for college, career, or individually determined next steps. The ends will be met at a cost that the community will support.
It's right on our agenda.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it's right on the agenda, that first page. Yeah.
I know I'd seen it, I was
Yeah,
just looking
Yeah,
for the
I
exact
see
words.
that. That's, and I think that becomes part of what the board redoes too, but I believe that kind of is your vision or your mission or whatever you call it, and that will drive the strategic plan, I think. I don't think there should be any kind of vision or mission that is contrary to whatever the global end statement.
Or even redundant with.
Right.
It's like you want to have a single source that you can work from. You know, it's like, oh, well, we've got this policy governance thing, but, and I'm not saying that these are the way you're suggesting it all, Michelle.
No, right.
I'm just saying that I think what Joe is saying is like, you want to have a single source. So that it's not like you have to follow this PDF and also something we put on our website.
And I do believe it's the board's responsibility to set the vision for the district, and then it's our job to get the district to the vision that the board has set.
So for the context of tonight, I think that the idea of this action item is just to say, are we comfortable with assigning a few people to keeping the trains running on time? Based on your comment, Emily, we can also move this to the next meeting if we're not ready to nominate people. And if we have too many people who want to be on it, be on quorum, then I would suggest do a random selection. So is there any objection to, so me and Michelle have nominated ourselves. Are there any other nominations or volunteers for the ends policy committee? And to be clear, we're not writing a new ends policy ourselves. We're just making sure that as a group, we have the meetings that we need to write.
Again, the guy.
We nominate people.
Yes.
Melissa, can I nominate you?
Sure. I guess I'm a little confused. We're just charging a committee. Like, we don't even know what this committee looks like meeting wise or like that. We're just charging a committee. Right? Sure.
And we're saying, and in policy governance, committees are not standing committees. They always have to have an end goal. And so the end goal of this committee, I think should be something like, you know, this committee is done when we've passed a new ends policy. So I would entertain a motion to charge a committee to coordinate the update to the ends policy consisting of Alyssa Galvez, Michelle Boyer, and Seamus Absher. And that committee would end once a new ends policy is adopted or the board decides that we're not going to adopt the policy.
I'll move.
Laura moves,
I'll second.
Jen seconds. Is there any discussion? And this is an action item, so we will be taking public comment.
My only comment would be, the sense of urgency. I mean, you were just listing time, but I think beyond 6, 7, 8 months is too long. I would love to have this done by the end of August or at the latest, the end of September, so we can get a strategic plan going by the end of the first semester. Would kind of be a goal.
Right, because I think you also mentioned, I think that things that are laid out in the strategic plan probably wouldn't take effect until the next year anyway, so.
Right.
When did you say August?
That would be, yeah, if the board adopted new ends policies and limitations by the end of August, I would clap my hands. If it was another month, okay. I'll still be happy if you do it. What I don't want is a committee to get together and then nothing to happen, because then we're a ship without a clears. So,
For June, there by September.
So, it is typical, I'm not not bringing this up so that we can go in depth, because I know that's not the goal, but I think this is an important high level piece. Which is that it is typical for doing something of this magnitude and importance to work with an external consultant to lead this, to keep a process in place. And, you know, generally bring best practice to the process. So I don't know what our appetite, nor do I know what our budget is for them. I assume that the board has at least some small amount of budget for the year within our budget, but that may not be true.
Well, I would suggest that perhaps the first action of the committee before our next meeting would be to see if we think that we should suggest that to the board, and if we do think we should suggest that, getting quotes from like VSBA and whoever else. So I would say that's a good first action for the committee to take, is to precisely to answer that question.
and I think it's great. I think your idea is great because when you have an outside person, it can reduce some
Yes,
perceptions of
exactly.
predisposition.
And I think that the VSBA did actually lead this before. I think it helped with Essex, I believe. Updating the ends.
Yeah, I remember going through, they did a lot of, the board did a lot of work coming into school and the whole thing.
It was like the portrait of the graduate. Is that part of this, or is that something?
No, I think
different?
that's different,
Okay.
but they are,
It's related, I mean, it's used nationwide, it's something developed by a group called Knowledge Works, and it really kind of caught on
yeah.
in this context to help drive the development of ends. Because if you look at Portrait of Graduate and you look at our ends, they look awfully similar, right?
Yeah, because we have them on that portrait, but it's kind of the same thing.
In many places, those portraits replace like a strategic plan.
Yeah.
But understanding like what those are and what the differences are, and if you can harmonize all of that, I think that would be really
Yeah,
helpful.
that's a
too.
perfect word. I think I mean, there's some good stuff that's in our policies, but that harmonizing is definitely, and I think some,
To join.
also some more action-oriented statements as a part of that. They're just, you know, it's great to have aspirations, but they don't particularly give you a good target to aim at.
Yeah, start with the end in mind.
All right, well, there's still a motion on the table. Is that something that we want to vote on? All right, all those in favor? The motion passes and the committee is started.
Thank you.
So the next item on the agenda, it's a series of discussion items. However, I will note that we are more than 50 minutes early, and our public comment section was originally warned here for 6:25. That's an approximate time. So I was gonna suggest that we, if the board is amenable, that we add an additional public comment at this time, and also something that we maybe should have done at the beginning of the meeting is just go around for every board member to just have a statement about you know, opening up the new school board year. So I'm proposing amending the agenda now to take another round of public comment and also to have ourselves all introduce ourselves.
I kind of object to I just find it interesting that when we're way behind, there's like no sense of urgency to catch up, but when we're ahead, I just feel like let it, you know. I don't,
I do generally agree with you.
because I just don't, I mean, either like we just,
But it's our first meeting of the year. And it might be nice if we could go around and everybody. could
oh, I
say-
don't mind, I mean, that makes sense, but I'm just saying, opening up to public comment again, it just seems to like, because we've done it.
I don't think there's any. No.
Well, I mean, yeah, anyway, but no, I, people, it's not, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so it doesn't sound like there's support for another round of public comment. Do people want to introduce themselves?
Sure, I'll introduce myself.
Okay, so it sounds like we do have support from at least 2/3 of the board to amend the agenda and add a discussion item of just who we are. Does that make sense? Okay, great. So then, the next item on the agenda will be to just discuss who we are and Ally, actually, would you start by introducing yourself?
Sure. My name's Allie Leduc. I'm a senior at the high school and I'm one of the student representatives on the school board, as well as my co-representative Momin Okar, who's not here right now. I'm involved with things like volleyball at the high school, green team, those kind of things. And I guess I joined the board in the hopes of connecting students to the board more. Can be a scary thing to come talk in front of a table of adults who are making decisions about your education. So me and Momin are just trying to form a path for students to have that communication. We're hopeful that that will happen through Dr. Clark's advisory committee we're starting. And yeah, just a little bit about me.
Emily Hoffman, and I've been on the board for 1 year, and I just got elected for 3 more years. So that's really exciting, and I've lived in South Burlington for the majority of my life. Moved here in 1988 when I was 8 years old. I went through the system, honestly, my children have gone through, and I have one child still in the district. And I just, you know, love South Burlington, and I'm so happy to be a part of this group and also the steering committee that we met with earlier in the week. It's just really energizing to be a part of the community that I love and help move us forward together. So I'm really excited for this year and that we're back together, and I miss Austin, but I'm so excited to have Alyssa here, and yeah. So.
And my name is Jen Lawrence. I have lived in South Burlington for about 4.5 years. I have 4 children, 3 who are at the University of Vermont, and 1 who, my 4th, is actually in Allie's graduating class. And it looks like he will be going to UVM also this year, so it's pretty exciting. And let's see, I've been on the board also for 1 year, and I joined because it just felt like there was a lot of confusion about what the board was doing and how things were kind of working last year, and just having a seat at the table and trying to understand what's happening in our schools and how we can communicate that information to the public was very important to me. So I am also very excited to be with this group. I think we've had some very good cohesion, and I'm also really looking forward to working with you, Alyssa. And also very thankful to Austin, because I really appreciated what he had brought to the board.
Great. My name is Seamus Absher, and I have also been on the board for a year. I have a second grader and a fifth grader at Brook Marcotte. And I've been so appreciative of the way that they flourished there, the leadership, the teachers there. You know, just speaking as a parent, they have had a very enriching time there. As a school board member, I try to think about the whole community. My retired neighbor, the guy who cuts my trees, you know, my friends who are not related to the schools in any way, and how they're affected by the decisions that we make. And it is my deepest hope that next year, when it's budget season, we pass a budget with more support. And then the year after that, we pass a budget with even more support. So my focus is on how can we build trust across the political spectrum in this school district is the best place to have your kids and the best way to spend your tax dollars.
So my name is Laura Williams. It's my 4th year on the board. I'm originally from Rutland and Houlton, but I've been here for about 16 years. And both my kids went through here, and I joined the board just because I thought it's important to have a teacher voice on this board. It is my experience that school boards have absolutely no idea what it is like in these buildings, so that's why I'm here.
My name is Alyssa Galvez. I officially moved to South Burlington in 2021, so it's been about 5 years. I do not have any children in the district, but I saw a need in our community. I was actually kind of bummed out and a little surprised that Austin did run again. And so I saw that he wasn't running again. I saw a need for the community, and decided to step up. I think it's an important hard job that you guys and now I'm doing here. And I am hoping to represent my community best way that I can, and all of my experience. I used to work in South Burlington for about 4 years, and I currently work in the Addison Northwest School District. So I have some school district experience and operational experience that I think I can offer as well. So I'm excited to be here.
Dan Boyer, been on the board a year, like most of the board. Moved here 17 years ago. Both kids have gone through the system and gone on to other things now. Originally joined, the board was expanding, need people, and just wanted to try and be a part of improving the entire process, we'll say. So, I'm ready to continue.
Michelle Boyer. I've also been in South Burlington for 17 years. I also have 2 children that have graduated from. They're actually both at UVM right now. One is a student, one works there. And there are a few reasons that I wanted to be involved on the board, and do my best to contribute to mostly in just helping process so that the things that we do and what is happening in our schools, how our kids are doing in schools, is apparent to anybody who wants to know more. And one of the ways that I felt like I could make a contribution there was through the monitoring process. And so I am deeply appreciative to this board who gave me the latitude to do some deep thinking about that and to work with Joe and take one step forward, right, into improving that process. I'm also very eager to work towards setting goals with the community. It's a really critically important process. I think it will also help all the way around. It will help give that sense of cohesion if done well, right? And it will also give district leadership, Joe and his team and the teachers and students, some perhaps clearer direction on what their community expects from schools, in really practical, tangible ways. And so I really look forward to working with you all. It has been my great pleasure. I've only been here 6 months. And I'm on now for 2 more years on this gig. So thanks.
Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is an overview of fiscal year 2027 budget results. Tell us what happened last night.
Both of the issues we had on the ballot passed. The budget was a narrow win. It was 52 to 48%. The transfer of the funds from the fiscal year 25 surplus to the facilities was a larger win, 72-28, I believe. I'm grateful for the folks who voted. I sent a message out to the community today, talking a little bit about how I'm grateful everybody voted, and I know I'm not naive enough to know that or to think that everybody's happy that the budget passed. There was certainly opposition, thoughts about taxes being too high, and I take that those thoughts very seriously. I still believe our responsibility is to provide great opportunities for our students so they can make careers for themselves and be good, strong members of the community. And I also know that we have a responsibility to continually look to see how might we do things more efficiently and better. And that's my commitment to the board and to the community, is that we will always continue to look about how can we do things better, more efficient. So people, like you said, Seamus, people are really proud to be here and happy to support the district more and more every time we can come back with a budget.
Are there any other board comments on?
I would just say that I was so thankful for everyone who voted, no matter how you voted, thanks for voting. And I also was so grateful that the budget passed. I was in support of this budget, but obviously it was very close, as it has been in the years past. And I completely understand why people were not interested in voting for this. And what I was thinking is, and I think Joe basically just said it, is he's already, since he's been here, Joe has identified areas of savings for this budget we just passed. And it sounds like you are already thinking the same thing. As this year moves forward, I want to let the community know that you're continuing to do that work, and that next year's budget's already on our mind, and how we can find savings and efficiencies moving towards that way ahead of the schedule. To try to keep it to a number that is the community can pass and can feel like they can manage, because I deeply respect the money that is coming into our school, and we don't, we want to be respectful with those funds. And I really feel like Joe is the person at the helm who can really help us find the ways to save the money and also offer the education that we want to offer for our kids. So.
Thank you. I will say that my single focus is to bring, to try and find ways that the community can talk through some of the issues that we have with each other. And it is the hill that I'm gonna die on. I'm not trying to start a flame war on Facebook when I post my beliefs about how we need to, listen to the full political spectrum on this issue. And so I just wanna reaffirm my commitment to building trust and legitimacy of the school district as my personal political goal. And I hope that a lot of the community this year comes to our meetings. I'm going to be working very hard to get people to come to our meetings who don't traditionally come to our meetings, because I believe that if they feel heard, not only will it help us make better decisions, but it'll also just make everybody feel better about talking to each other, which is, we're in a pretty rough spot right now. So.
I mean, I would like to say that going into this, I know that I was one of the people who voted for the budget to be on the ballot. But I will say, going into voting, I was not sure what I was gonna do on it, quite honestly, because I do also hear the community. And I feel that, we were listening to people who came and gave their public comment, and as Seamus had pointed out, being lobbied by teachers and by parents who have children in the district, but not everybody has kids that are in the schools. And there's a lot of people who are on fixed incomes and cannot afford to have property taxes continue to keep going up at an unsustainable rate. So what I would challenge our district and the board to be thinking about, particularly, is going into next year's budget cycle. I feel like it is very important to say we've got to keep those costs down, and as much as we can stay flat going into next year. We cannot just have blinders on and say, yep, this is what schools need, but looking for the opportunities to capture cost reductions wherever we can, and being good stewards of the budgets that we have. I know we're going to be talking about accounts payables here, and I've got some questions on stuff, minor stuff, but it's the little things that add up. And so I really think that, that was kind of my position. And it was tough because, even talking to my family, I've got now, there's 6 registered voters at my house, and we're talking about, hey, how is everybody voting? And what are the pros and cons here? And so I was working through it, and they're like, Mom, you're on the board. Like, shouldn't you have this all figured out? And it's like, well, it's tough because, when you're voting yes, you're realizing that this impact that is going to be, affecting people. One other thing I want to add is I think that it was confusing because our increase was 3.4%. And everywhere that we're looking, you're seeing 8%. This is the 8%, right? Because of the way that cascaded out and other factors that were included there. But we did not increase our budget, right, by 8%. It was that we went up with the cost of living, whatever the inflation rate is, right? And so I think that was also something important to dissect and communicate that, I think there could have been perhaps more clarity, around that. In the end, it's like, what is the bottom line? That's what people need to know. But anyhow, just wanted to add that.
I would also say you should bring your advocacy to the state level,
Mhm.
because we're only responsible, only 25% of the budget we can determine.
Right.
I did not hear the governor say one word about healthcare, not one. So, I mean, that's what the driving force behind these high costs. And I will also say that there is a plan to, the term buy down, they're going to use some excess funds to buy down the tax rate. There is no long-term plan, as far as I can
That's a
tell.
temporary.
It's a temporary one-time fix, and it's not gonna solve much. So I would really keep on, maybe we get Brian in here and Bridget, whatever, but we need to talk about, what's the long-term goal? Because we cannot, I appreciate all the comments, I would agree. And there needs to be a long-term goal by the long-term plan
Right.
coming from the states. Because what they're asking us to do is really difficult. So anyway, that's what I would say.
And one thing too, that I also want to mention is that what we passed to the voters was not the first crack at the piñata here either, because the original number that came out, it wasn't the 3.4 for everything to stay flat. I think it was over 6%. And what that would have translated to, right? And so I just applaud, Joe and team for finding the cost reductions and that you were able to. And I think that speaking to that is really important because I have seen some things online that, well, this is false, it's not true. These positions from administration were not eliminated, and I can tell you they were. I know that there were people that were in those roles that are not in those roles anymore. And so I know that that's a fact. And so I really applaud the school for doing what you did in order to keep those reductions down as much as you possibly could and not impact, obviously nursing was impacted, but, to really try to minimize the student facing positions, I think was really impressive. So props to you for that. And to keep going.
I mean, I agree with what Laura said, you can only buy down until you run out of money and then you can't buy down anymore. So the state needs to. Words I don't want to say, I can't say.
Yeah,
They need to,
actually can say that.
no, they need to do their job.
You're 100%, yeah.
But, I mean, there have been years where it's taken 3 votes to get a budget approved in this district. The last 2 years, the vote has been very close, like 48, 52. Yeah, it was basically the same last year, maybe even just a slight bit closer. But, you're talking almost half the people who voted are saying no to what we're putting out, so we need to do, I would like to do a better job with the finances so that we get, as you stated earlier, Seamus, more people supporting the budget rather than these, 51-49, 52-48 votes, because,
That's a good thing.
yeah.
It's not
Not a lot more to what others have said. I really, I guess the only thing that I haven't said that I want to say is that I worry about us taking a stance that would help us. Oh, there's only this part we can control. And I think that has really kind of perpetuated the system for us to say, okay, there's nothing we can do until the legislation acts. That just gives another year to kick it down the road. And I don't think that would help us. And like you have all said, I am so impressed with the work that Joe and his team have been doing. And I have really high confidence that some of the operational changes that you're making are actually going to affect long-term expenditures like efficiency in MTSS applications and processes, right? That's just such a critical piece on all fronts. So I think we have huge opportunity with this group and this leadership and the staff and the faculty to make that happen, given that we obviously can't rely on, we can advocate, right? We can ring the bells and say what we like. And, I've sent emails to legislators and I don't get replies. And so,
Can I say two other things real quick? Sorry. One is, I also want to thank the community that stepped forward and challenged some of the things. Like, we had a really good call with Sereni last week. And I appreciate that he came forward and he had some questions, and Jean Marie, your team, Elizabeth and April did a great job explaining everything, and Joe. I appreciate the patience that you took to go through and really understand what his issues were, and I would encourage the community to continue doing that. And then the other thing I would add is, we hear things that to me are kind of pie in the sky, like we need to advocate, we need to do advocacy. What does that look like? And maybe we need to harness that and come up with an advocacy strategy that we can then take and deploy and say, hey, this is what we need to do. What does that look like? It needs to be something tangible.
I'll tell
right?
you what it looks like. So, I happened to be at the State House. I went to the State House last week. And I walked into the cafeteria and there Laura was sitting with two legislators. So, just saying,
Fantastic.
yeah. So, yeah, and there are specific bills. Going to the point Laura was saying about healthcare costs, H842. We should all email our legislators about this. It allows the arbitrator in charge of the healthcare decision at the state level to split the difference instead of just going with one party's proposal for healthcare. So that would be a great way to just have a little bit more of a moderate position, because both sides, of course, when they negotiate the state healthcare contract, are gonna take a maximalist position, because that's how you do it. And, you know, and so H842 is a great place for us to start in terms of advocacy. And there's other stuff that is coming out anyway. It's not time for that. Right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would just say on that, how do we, if there's information, where can we, again, harness this knowledge and what we need to do? Can we put it in a central location? Can it go on the school board portion of our website? Like how do we then cascade that out to the community?
Well, part of it is like when I meet with the VSBA too, like they're lobbying, they are working hard and advocating on behalf of school boards. And there's some H842 also like to get something in the middle. Yeah, so
I think we need more, turn up the volume.
well, the other thing is we could be writing articles for the other paper too, which is something this board has not done, and they are expecting it once a month and no one's doing it. And that's me too. I'm not criticizing. I mean, I've been on the board the longest. I've written exactly.
Well, we've done a
Well,
few.
you all written
We've
one.
done a few, but not really from the board. We've never had a board.
It should be like once a month, one of us writes one.
Okay.
That's how
I think
it's.
we'll get more success for that if it's not the board, right? I remember watching like one of your first attempts, we were all trying to wordsmith on,
Yeah,
like, that doesn't work,
Now,
right?
maybe this charge committee for the ends.
Well, generally, like what I remember what we used to do is like write it and then we'd run it by the superintendent and
Yeah.
whatever, and just somebody like Lance, I'd make sure you weren't completely wrong. You know what I mean?
So,
So, I don't know.
Okay. Long
That's not what you do. That's easy. You just come up, it's just a
Yeah.
Google Doc and you come up with
Right.
and everybody signs up.
You just need to be careful about having those discussions outside of the meeting.
right,
There's a big issue in Ohio where we've got a lot of trouble for writing via like a Google Doc, a letter they sent to the editor. Right.
We've had a lot of
No,
training on that. for
yeah. No, what I mean is that's just purely a sign up.
Right.
But yes, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
No, not writing the article together. No, that would
No.
be,
But
that's.
maybe like the charge committee for what you're doing, we could do something on that or do an
Right.
article on the budget or.
Yeah,
So-
we should have written an article. on the budget.
so, Joe, do you have any other comment on the whole situation? Not saying you have to, but.
No, I think that, I think that generally elected officials listen more to citizens than they do school board members and certainly more than they do superintendents. I think if you really want to get action at a state house, you need to get a committee of community members who do not have ties with the school who meet and advocate. And that's hard to do because it's hard to do. Everybody sits around saying that they want change, but when you have to get off the couch, it's hard to do.
Yeah, true.
But I think that's the best way to get change is to get a vocal group of people that are concerned citizens who are active in the state house.
I was thinking the same thing because when the numbers were very similar to last year, I thought to myself, did the same people get off the couch,
Yep.
go and vote the same way they voted last
I
year,
had
and the
the
same
same
way they
thought.
plan to vote next year, and the same way, so we gotta break
But
that
there was a
cycle.
slight
Nothing.
Yeah.
a slight increase in
And
the percentage of voters.
10 more people voted, or the difference was last year, the budget passed by 127 votes. This year it passed by 138 votes.
I looked at the percentage of.
Yeah, right, exactly. I know where we have to.
So I can the town last year.
But yeah, that, I mean, and that also speaks to the, like, the conversations you were talking about, you know, and like in person, which is so much better than on, you know,
Yeah.
online, because we all do want the same thing, even the person myself who advocated for this budget. I do want my taxes to go down, but I also, you know, I want that very badly, but I also am very conflicted because I feel my job is to provide the best for our students. So how can we all talk about it and like get to a place that?
And I would just second what Michelle said, which is. We can't play victim all the time. There are things within our control that are hard decisions that we need to make, and you get criticized for hard decisions, but that's what leadership's all about, right? You have to be brave to be a leader, and that means taking some unpopular stances.
Yeah, I don't really see it as being the victim. I see it as being a realist. And if anybody in the community wants to contact me, and I'm happy to put you in touch with legislators, and I've gone to the education committee and I have testified. So I'm happy to help if anybody wants to do that.
So would it be appropriate to charge a committee, an advocacy committee, that we could at least start exploring this a little bit further and what we can do to take it to the community?
I can connect you with a school board president in the school district in which I've lived in Ohio, who does this very thing. They've been very successful.
Great.
You want to. The board
Maybe we could add this to our.
chair wants to talk to the board president.
Well, we have a
Agenda.
big agenda, we have a big meeting on the 11th, that's got some space in it that. The discussion topic.
Yes.
So is it really?
I'm thinking like, okay, starting with the end in mind, like even though we've just got this budget passed, I'm already thinking about next year's and what are some steps that we can start taking now to.
Yeah, maybe the right way to round up this discussion is to, on the one hand, say, when we get to agenda planning, let's discuss.
Okay.
The concept of charging another committee around advocacy. Although I guess if we wanted to talk about the content of that, we should perhaps spend a little bit more time on it now. But if we're okay with just scheduling a discussion of that, we could just schedule it first. And then the other thing we could do now, going to Laura's point about the other paper, is we could assign one or maybe even two of us to write into the other paper. And not really assign, more like a request that they write in on their own behalf. Unless we want to try and make a board statement. We've made, I think, maybe one board statement in the whole history of the time I've been on the board. So do people want to make a board statement about the budget, or do we just want to ask a couple people to write in about the budget with their own opinions?
For the other person.
For the other paper, yeah.
I have nothing.
I mean, usually, yeah, that's how we've done it. It's like someone says, okay, who's writing it for next Monday? Who's writing it for April? And anybody has some interest.
Well, my concern is just that, and again, we're still talking about budget results, right? That's the discussion I we're on. And I could imagine multiple people on the board writing in with our thoughts about the budget results, right? And I think that would be totally fine. I could also imagine this board saying, well, we really need to put together a statement that is supported by the majority of the board about the budget results. I happen to think that we don't need to do that because I think Joe put out a good message already. So I just want to know, does anybody want to advocate for having a board statement that is an officially approved board statement about the budget?
No.
Okay,
No, but I do like the idea of putting out an article to the other paper, and I'd be keen to be one of the authors of that. If you want to partner up with me, Shana, something, write something, or
sure. So maybe we should just do that as in our own personal capacity.
that's fine, but I think something like that, or.
So we won't be using the official.
I think that's great.
slide.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that would be really good.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I would encourage anybody else who wants to write in to do that, because they probably will take your article.
Yeah, they do.
Okay. Is there any other board comment on the fiscal year 2027 budget results? And luckily, we don't have to take any action. All right, the next item on the agenda, was removed. Filling possible vacancy because we had a successful wedding campaign. Congratulations on that. The next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report.
Yeah, so I have 3 items to talk about today. I'm gonna talk about one, Jean Marie is gonna talk about one, and Nicole's gonna talk about one. I'm gonna start with the early retirement incentive. As you remember, the South Burlington School District has initiated a one-time offer of the employee severance plan for the 25-26 school year. This board approved that on January 14th. The plan is available to eligible teachers, administrators, and classified employees. The enrollment period started on February 16th and it closes on April 3rd. Eligibility is for teachers and administrators who have a minimum of 10 years of service or are eligible for retirement under VSTRS by June 30th. And for classified employees, they only need to have a minimum of 10 years of service. They do not need to be eligible for retirement. The packages for teachers and administrators, an $85,000 payment distributed over 5 years in monthly payments. And for classified employees, it's 100% of their 25-26 base salary with a max of $30,000 also over 5 years. To this point, we have, you probably remember when the presentation was going on that the company talked about, you know, they anticipate 18 certified people, they anticipate 18 classified folks, and they ran their numbers based on, okay, if you get 18 and 5, you don't replace, or 3, so you only replace 15. That's where you'll get your break. So I just want to give you a heads up, or not a heads up, an update of where we are so you can get a sense of if this is really going to happen or not. So currently, as of today, 7 people have turned in their documents. They have signed up for this. 4 of those are teachers, 2 of those are administrators, and 1 is a classified employee. There are 12 others who are ranked number 1. What that means is they have said 100% we are going to take this. They just haven't turned in their paperwork yet.
So what was that number?
12 of them.
Okay.
6 of those are classified employees, 5 of those are teachers, and 1 is an administrator. There are 10 more people that are ranked number 2. A number 2 ranking means that they are 75% sure that we're going to take this. Of those 10 people, 5 are classified, 5 are teachers, and 2 are administrators. There are 2 more people that are ranked number 3, which is about a 50%. And 1 of those is classified and 1's a teacher. And then there's 1 person ranked number 4, which is, I'm not going to go for this. And that's a classified employee. So when you count that up, of the people that are 100%, we are going to take it. You're looking at 3 administrators, 9 teachers, and 7 classified people. When you add in the 75%ers, that gives you another 5 teachers and 2 administrators. So doing my quick math, 4, 6, and 6 is 12, and 5 and 2 is 19. That's 19 teachers and administrators, right? They projected 18, and we have 19 so far that are there. Now, a few were classified staff, but you also remember probably from the presentation that there's not, the reason you do classified staff is really an equity piece. There's not necessarily savings in classified staff because the salaries are just not the same as certified staff. They have until April 3rd to sign up, and I will keep you posted because as soon after April 3rd, this board is going to need to decide, are we going to go through this plan or are we not going to go through this plan? That's where we are with that.
Joe, is there a max number that we will take?
There's no max number we'll take. No. And of course, we retain the authority to, for any of these folks that we want to stick around a little longer for operational needs, we will have the ability to do that. So that's where we are with it. They are coming, the company, EAP was here for 5 days meeting with folks. They are coming back for another day to meet with folks. And it's just now a wait and see who fills out the form and who jumps on board. Okay, so.
Sorry, quick question.
Yeah.
Is it still possible that someone could just come out of the woodwork and say, oh, wait, I want to be on that.
There's absolutely,
Right, okay.
yeah, and they say that that's not uncommon for people just to play their cards real close to the vest. I know I'm taking it. I'm not gonna do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see. I don't think it'll be 100.
No, it's just like the way you put that. Yeah, wait. Hey, we give like 2 months of.
I wondered if you were asking, like, is there a max? Because if there are too many people, you're like, no, no.
Well,
slow down the
that's
rush.
my point.
Yeah, now if there are too many people, we could say, okay, you can't go because we need to run the school.
Right.
That's just, I mean, I think we can say pretty confidently with these numbers that we'll be able to run.
No, and you said that, yeah, for operation, we could put that off for a year,
Yeah, up to a year, yeah.
so.
Yeah.
I just want to point out that this is an example of this administration,
Yeah,
you guys taking proactive steps to deal with a cost problem in a way that is fair to, in a way that is, I think even, I don't want to speak for them, but I think the union also was appreciative of this program.
yeah, and I'm glad you said that because it reminds me of a couple things. I have spoken to a handful of people that are doing this who have said, I would not have considered leaving had it not been for this plan. So that is showing something. The other thing is that we have talked a lot in our COLE meetings, and we'll reiterate in our principal meeting tomorrow that, remember, a big part of the success of this is replacing people at the lower end of the scale and not replacing everybody. So to your point, you've heard me say a couple times when I interview that attrition is so much better than a RIF. I would rather somebody leave and not replace than lay somebody off. And that means that sometimes you have to restructure, you have to reorganize when people leave so that we can make a savings without, I don't want to sacrifice opportunities for kids. But I think that we are really intelligent people that can be very creative in the way that we provide services for our folks. So we will continue to look at that. I can tell you already, one of the administrators, we know that we're not replacing, right? Kristen Roman resigned, is retiring at the end of the year. We're not replacing her. So that is one position that we know that we're not going to replace. So, and there should be a handful more.
Okay. Any other board questions on the early retirement? Okay.
All right, so I'm gonna turn it over to Jean Marie, who's gonna talk about you've heard me talk about the move from South Point coming over here and for our offices going to a new place. And we have a small update. I mean, there's still a lot of work to be done, but if you could give it just a quick update about our plans to move.
Sure, yeah, so we have confirmed that we will be moving to 462 Shelburne Road. It's a first floor suite, significantly smaller than the amount of square footage that we have in this space. But really the goal is to put the South Point students in a place that works better for them than their current location. Being so close to the high school, this really will be impactful to that group of students. And I don't know if it's a larger space, it's a different shape of space for the South Point program, and we are eventually going to be adding some students to that program as well. So it's all goodness of moving that program to this location. So we're looking at a July 1st move-in date on Shelburne Road, which impacts my favorite July vacation, but we'll figure that out. So there's a lot of work to be done around, the physical moving of the organization, as well as all of the technological parts of getting us up and running over there. So it will happen. As Joe and I said earlier today to the team in this building, it won't be smooth, but none of it ever is, but we'll make it as seamless as we possibly can. And one big change for the team here is that we will, almost all of us will be sharing offices in this space on Shelburne Road. So that'll be an adjustment for some of the staff members here, but I think that's it.
It's just, when she talked about more students in the South Point program, that will include middle school students. So we definitely have a need with some behavior matters at the middle school, and they will be able to be in the South Point program. And the other thing is this floor still will be ours. So this room exists, 4 meetings will still be here. we are going to move to a central enrollment, so anybody that comes to new to the district will come to the Welcome Center, the South Burlington School District Welcome Center that Monica is going to be overseeing that transition, so it's going to be, it's still a vibrant place, and we'll still be able to have professional development here and that sort of thing.
I should say that we are working with an architect on potentially renovating the space on the second floor to get it, it's, as many of you have been through it, it's all individual offices, so updating it to some degree to, make our restrooms upstairs ADA compliant, that's, really important to me, and, you know, making the space just more conducive for education than individual offices, so more to come on that. We sort of asked for the stars and the moon, and we'll see what the price tag comes in there and adjust accordingly. But so we've got to get out of this space first before we can get those pieces of business done.
So, oh, go ahead. Any expectations and issues, or is the coordination like everything is, but the bond was
Yeah.
approved, right?
Yeah.
There's gonna be some building over there.
Yep, I don't know what the timeline is on theirs. I mean, for the folks
They're
that,
always on it.
yeah, and for the team here, I know that I personally like to exit on that side of the parking lot because it gives me a longer runway to this intersection here. And I think that they will ask, or they've kind of tipped us that they're gonna ask us to not use that as an entry and an exit point any longer. But one of the nice changes that I've seen over the last year is it really feels like the folks at the city are our partners, and we've really been partnering a lot over the last several months. And so in particular, in this building, you know, we lease this section of the building for a very reasonable price. But they have really been a good partner. It's yours, like do with it as you please, sort of a thing. But they came to, we announced that we wanted to move South Point to this building at the same time, coincidentally, that they were working to put a sprinkler system through the firehouse. And they opted to include this side of the building as well. That's a requirement when we have students in the building, is that it's sprinkled. So, and the city's partnering with us on the cost for that, which is huge. So, I've been working with Chris Corbin at the fire department, and that work hopefully will be happening late this spring, early summer, as we are moving out and as we're starting our own construction. So, yeah, they're really good partners and makers to have.
Do you have an estimate, at just even a high level, what the cost difference is from moving and being here? And, you know, is there a net benefit for having South Point here? And maybe you discussed this, but if you.
Yeah,
can remind
I
us.
like, I mean, I can tell you that the rent at South Point is $300,000 a year. The rent that is going to be at the Shelburne building that we're going to, because that will be the savings, what we're paying in at South Point to what we're paying at the new place is $72,000. So there's some savings there too.
I mean, it sounds like there's big savings. The kids who are here will be more connected with their friends over there. And I think you guys will be near Myers Bagels.
And the Great Harvest Bread Company, and like, yeah, there's
TJ
some.
Maxx over there.
Yeah, exactly.
So-
Five Guys.
Actually, that brings up my question, which is, there was, I remember, concern about the central office when they moved into this building and causing a really big chasm between the schools and central office. And I do recognize that the elementary schools are spread out, so it's really just the middle school and the high school, but I know you've been really present in all the buildings. I just wanted to hear how you're planning to keep the connection.
Yeah, if there's a negative, I'd say that's the negative, because we can't take all the staff here, so HR is going to stay here, technology is going to stay here. I'm not happy about that, but for the $230,000, I'm happy about it.
Yeah.
And I think we've been doing, at least from our building, doing a really good job of building community with the employees in this building. And we are also, I think, pretty visible in our buildings. I'll speak to HR, who is now, they've been going out, having the HR, what do they call it?
On-site.
HR on-site, where they go out to a building every month, and they sit there all day and answer people's HR questions. So I think it's great. Yeah, I mean, I
I
think
think
you
we'll
have
have
to
to work
be,
a little harder, but.
you do,
yeah.
you have to be very, I can't think of the term, you have to do it on purpose, right? You have to be very purposeful about what you're.
Intentional and just mindful that that was a history that we went through in this district and we don't wanna, we don't wanna do that.
It is a little bit of a bummer, like Joe said, that we can't have the entire team together. But, and I am a little bummed, but I love being able just to walk across the street. I mean, Suzanne and I have had walking meetings, right? I've had, walking meetings with some of my employees that work in the high school and just being able to walk through you walk into a school building and it makes you remember why you get up and come to work every day, right? And so it will have to be more purposeful on our parts to go into those buildings to do that, so.
And at the same time, we'll be right close to
So
Orchard, so we'll
yeah.
see those Hoffman kids and we'll take them down a little bit. whatever they're being
So square footage wise, for South Point moving here, how does that shake out?
I don't have the answer to that question. This is bigger.
It is bigger.
Yeah,
which
this,
is-
I could just tell you by walking through that space that South Point uses. They're in, kind of an L-shaped, like office
Yep.
setup, like with like a hallway with offices. They have a large kitchen area and they have a pretty big size, like bike repair shop that
Yep.
they use there. And so, that like traditional education space, I would say, that we'll be able to accommodate them with here will be that bigger. But we've already been working, they've been working with Pat Burke at the high school around like, okay, where can we set up the bike shop and how can we access the gym and all those sorts of things. So, probably at the end of the day, it's like break even on space, but
Yeah, I did have a chance to see the South Point facility, so I know what you're
Oh,
talking
yeah,
about.
yeah.
But that is how you're able to accommodate middle school students now, because you've got a
Exactly.
little bit of a bigger footprint
Yeah, yeah.
for that.
So
Okay.
some of the work that
Thank
we
you.
are talking about doing here on the second floor is removing some walls to make some individual offices into larger spaces that they can use as classrooms.
Right.
So, yeah,
Great. Thank you.
yeah,
Thanks, Jean Marie.
you're welcome.
Right, and
It's more fun to be up here talking about this than all the stuff we talked about for the last like 4
I
months.
know.
absolutely. And talking about the SPED reorganization, as you know, Kristen Romick accepted her retirement resignation at the last meeting. And I was very clear that we are not replacing that position. Nicole is going to be in charge of both of those departments, and she's gonna talk a little bit about that reorganization. There's still things that we can't tell yet because we don't want, we want the people who are going to be impacted to hear it from us before they hear it at a board meeting. So she'll tell you what she can about where we're going with the reorganization.
She'd like to start by saying it's really nice to be here without a slideshow. That feels great. Joe and I, over the past couple of months, have attended 3 key meetings, specifically one for parents of kids who receive special education services, and then one with special education staff in South Burlington, to gather their feedback. We also, I think all of you have seen the special education monitoring reports. So we combed through those going back to 2021. And then there's just been like observations and feedback and information that has happened from all various stakeholders over the past 3 or 4 months. So we went through all that, and I was asked to figure out how to increase compliance, improve best practice, and also strengthen tier 3 specialized instruction. And so I brought drafts to their COLT meeting and shared them with them and reworked them and reworked them and reworked them. And we got to a final resting place, and then tomorrow I'll share them with administration. And they're really, and then after administration, I'll share them with teachers. And really the goal is a 3-year stabilization and best practice plan. So year 1 is really just about getting stability in the district for special education, ensuring compliance. Hopefully at the end of that year, we'll be 100% compliant. And then also starting to begin to launch with getting some evidence-based specialized instructional practices across the district for some consistency in how we support students specifically, but most importantly with math
literacy, executive functioning, and social emotional learning. Those are sort of the four big buckets. And all of this magic will be done leveraging our federal IDEA funds. That happens to be a place where we have the most flex. And so I've been combing through them and working with April and Elizabeth, who are amazing, to make sure that we have all our ducks in a row and we have the right money in the right place to do the right things. And I was talking to Monica about this earlier today. There's nothing radical in the plan, just to like literally, I think I had one original idea. The rest are like, what do I know and we know people are doing across the state that's effective? And so I don't think it's going to be anything surprising in terms of how special education works in Vermont. And there will be new items for the district.
There might be growing pains, you know, so that, again, it takes bravery to be a leader, and there will be some, but it's gonna work.
So the training you're talking about is generally for gen ed staff.
We're gonna start with special education staff and it's sometimes it can feel like if I say we're gonna work on best practices, that means people haven't been doing best practices, and so I'm trying to be mindful. That's not what I'm saying. And we could, as a district, strengthen something like structured literacy, specialized instruction, so kids and students who are a couple of grade levels below that we're using practices for literacy, that there's evidence works across the district. That would be an example. We will also work with general educators, but we're gonna start special.
Is there any other board question or comment?
You're welcome.
Anything else?
No, I think we have a lot on our plate. It's great. I told you, I love it here. There's a ton of work to do, and it's great work, and I think we have a fantastic team. And I'm excited to see what we're doing this year.
So the next item on the agenda is consent agenda and planning. So, approving the minutes and approving the accounts payable, payroll warrants, all of those things can be done with consent. So my question to the board is, are there any objections to the minutes, the accounts payable, or the payroll?
I had some comments. Well, just very high level, as I was looking through accounts payables. My comment was, we've had discussions before about how costs were associated with various partnerships and tutorings and trainings. And I guess the question would be, can that information be broken out so we can clearly see and understand the costs associated with some of these partnerships? For example, we see charges that come up like with Howard Center and tutoring and coaching services. And I just think it would be helpful to see how they're broken out, if that's something that we can do. I know that they are coded. And there's an account description that's there to characterize, but I'm just never seeing how things are broken out, annually or monthly. I know this has been a conversation before, but like, these are big charges and you'd have to go back and reconcile what those were over the last year to really have sense of that. So that was one.
And before we move on from that one, are you saying aggregating and reporting out on, for example, this vendor received this much money per quarter, per year, per month?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. Something like that, I think would be helpful, just to understand and I mean, I don't know if that's not something that we can do, or there's some reason that we wouldn't do that. But again, just for transparency into what our spends are, I think it would be helpful to see something like that live up. Anybody else?
Yeah, I hear that. I've often wondered for particular vendors, it's hard to get an idea of even how much money we spend
Right.
on X or Y
Exactly.
without,
So Nicole and I had a discussion after the last meeting around some of the questions that came up from the vouchers last time. And so one of the things that we talked about is a lot of the things that you folks have questions about are directly related to special education services. And so whether you think we've spent too much money to the Howard Center, or you'd like us to cut that down, is not something that we're legally able to do. So I can tell you, okay, this month, we've sent this many dollars to this organization. And if you, like, you can't necessarily come back to me and say, that's too much, you should look into cutting that, right? Like, that their educational services that are required to provide.
Yeah, I think the only caveat I would add is like, anybody here could say like, you should spend less, and I think it's part of my responsibility to figure out how we spend less, because we are allowed to consider costs with special education, but we can't necessarily change the services that an IEP team determines this kid needs, right? So if somebody needs something, needs clinical services, we can look at a Howard Center option or an X option and compare those costs. And if the service is gonna help the kid make progress, regardless of which one, we can choose the one that's less expensive. That's the path for cost savings.
If there is another option available.
Yes, that is the Vermont,
Conundrum.
And if there's space and if there's no waiting list and all of those things.
that's the hardest thing
and
about Vermont.
I don't think we would want to get into the operational decisions, but I think that the general ask is just, it does the accounting software that you have, let's say for the top, maybe you say the top 100 vendors, or maybe you say vendors where we've spent more than $5,000 in the last 6 months. I don't know, some cutoff point that, and then for each one of those, it just automatically generates the aggregates.
Yeah. I don't know the software well enough I'm certain it can pull something like that for us. And one of the things that my team, April and Elizabeth, who we all love, are working on really more transparency between the operations of the finance and this board. So they're working on, in 2 weeks, in 2 meetings from tonight, we'll be here with another of the fiscal monitoring reports. I do wonder, as we're going through those, my team for the first time, like, is that really filling the need for what you all are looking for? I also know that some of the reports that the finance team and other districts regularly submit to the board are things that have not ever been done in this district. So I think you will continue to see more changes coming to the board so that you feel more comfortable with it.
I think I want to speak to that a little bit. I think that's a great idea. We talked about, Jean Marie is in charge of 2 monitoring reports, and both of them report 4 times a year.
Yeah.
So 8 months out of 12, they are doing monitoring reports, which I think is excessive. I also think it's unusual in my experience, and apparently even here, that there's not like a monthly discussion or presentation to the board just about the month and the monthly financials.
Yeah.
This is what we spent this year. This is what we brought in. This is what we spent.
Yeah.
A chart saying 47% of it was for special education, and 12% was for transportation, et cetera. Those are, I think I want to say it's simple to get together. It's not easy to get together. It's simple.
Yeah.
And I think when we do that, I think what I'm hoping is you will find the need for us not to have so many modern reports, because we're getting monthly reports here at the meeting about, this is where my school.
Yeah, and I think that's the norm in
Mhm.
outside of Central Office. So we're getting there.
And I think that's exactly it. And I appreciate you articulating that, both of you, because it's just having that clarity and understanding. These are the spends, and you've got this $73 million budget, 71 million for this year. And to be able to break that down and really have higher level, you don't need to be in the weeds, but just for people to be able to digest it and say, all right, out of this, we know that this percentage is salaries and blah, 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 and all of this, but then you've got these other charges that are showing up. There are these recurring charges that are special ed, and being able to track how things are, even from one year to the next, to be able to look at that I think is also very helpful. So we can see where are things going up more relative to
Yeah.
others,
And
right?
if I could contextualize that a bit, like, I think that there's at least three parties that are paying attention to the finances, and they each have a different role, and like, you know, you guys are the experts and you're running the show. And then you have your auditors, and they've got their controls, and they are gonna offer their opinion. And then there's us, and we're kind of like gut, smell, intuition, you know, and like it help, and so if what Jen is suggesting is, it's kind of just a way to support us, be able to look at it and say, is something right here, you know? So,
Yeah.
I do think that that's a good suggestion to have
Yeah,
aggregates.
and I also think things do change, right? Like what we have planned for and what we actually spend in certain categories can change as the year goes along. But we know that we have to stay in our $71 million box, right? So we do move monies around from one area of the business to the other. I'll give you the example, like as I was looking through some of the vouchers that you folks are going to be hopefully approving tonight. There's a big section where Bart, our director of facilities, asked Elizabeth to double the original PO for the purchase of salt for our
I saw
parking
that.
lots, right? Like, it's shocking how much money it takes to salt these campuses just for like one day. It's like $5,000.
And we do that.
And we partner with an outside organization who does some of our plowing and salting, but we do a lot of it
And we
in-house.
just bought a plow too.
We're working on buying more to have,
I
to do it
was
more.
looking.
Yeah, yeah. So, so we didn't necessarily create the PO originally for the right amount of money, right? So it comes in at a different price, right? So that's just one example
Right.
of knowing that we have to stay in our box, but moving things around
But I
as
think,
needed.
yeah, to go back to the aggregate, and even if you have like, hey, this is what our goals are for the year, or what our target is. And then you put next to it, and this is where we're tracking, so that we can see it, and you have that transparency to say, we put this amount here, and this amount here, and this amount here. And then we're, 50% of that, and then at the end, are we gonna have a surplus?
Yeah.
And how are we tracking towards that? Again, it's just this high level, we don't need to be deep in the weeds, but. Roll it up, facilities, whatever, however you do it, I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
What was your second thing?
okay, well, then I just had questions regarding some of the specific things, like. I wasn't able to see or understand some of the charges for students who are attending Rice, but they're receiving because it got cut off, and I was just trying to understand what
I
those.
think that's proportionate share, so the federal government requires that, that if we're gonna receive funding from the federal government, that students. It's different for entitlement, I just have to make sure I'm saying the right thing, that if students are attending independent schools, which is what we call them in Vermont, in our school district, we provide X dollars in special education services. Okay, and so you see things that look a little weird, like we're paying for this in an independent school and that in an independent school.
Yeah.
They're 100% proportionate share,
Okay,
and we would get in a lot of trouble if we didn't do it,
okay,
even though it sometimes feels strange.
okay.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I'm wondering if all or most of the costs that are using outsourced for the, lack of a better word, because it's different. Thinking of like Howard Center or students that, go to another school because of the need to offer certain services. Do all or most of those situations fall under extraordinary costs, like that extraordinary
That's a great
classification? Think of that
Um,
one thing.
I think so extraordinary, so reimbursement happens at $65,000. So, majority of out of district placements, the tuition exceeds that amount, and then there's transportation, so we are collecting revenue for, I can like see the spreadsheet as we're talking, we're collecting revenue for probably, I don't know, 50 to 60% of our students who receive their services outside of. Yeah.
Right, but when we look at, the expense for the Howard Center, and we're thinking what the source of that cost is, I'm just wondering how much of that is not exactly,
Very,
is due to students that are under the extraordinary. cost.
Very few.
Okay.
Extraordinary expense really kicks in when you go to another school versus you receive a particular service, and part of that is because places like the Howard Center can leverage Medicaid to help them keep their costs really low.
And just in general, if we could hire, like, spiritually, if we could hire union staff to do all the special ed, with, you know, if we could actually fill those positions, is that kind of like what the ideal, and then we wouldn't even need Howard Center and ProCare? Or like, why do we do special ed outside of?
Good question.
And if we don't need to answer that right now,
Yeah.
maybe that's a big question.
Great
That's a
question.
whole
though.
other issue.
It's like spiritual, economic, you're like getting all the categories.
I think we are so.
Send us an email.
but good
It's a
question.
good question.
Last one that
So
I
let's
had.
go back to the, yes,
Money
discussions of
fee.
accounts payable.
So last one was, okay, this may not be a very popular question, it's just a question. Because I've had children in school districts all across the country, from California to the East Coast and South and everywhere. Is it expected that families contribute to any of the activities at the school? Like, for example, is music entirely free? Are sports teams entirely free? I've always been, in other districts, been required to contribute money, pay to play. So, you know, so the question was, you know, also, is there any fundraising for sports or musical instrument purchases? Is there any financial responsibility for participation? So that, just a question.
It's a great question.
I can
I,
answer it as a parent.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure we don't do pay to play here, or many of our school sponsored space.
Some things.
But we do all, and we do also fundraise.
I pay for everything for high school skating,
Renting instruments.
renting instruments.
Yeah.
But there is, so I will
Hockey
say, there
sticks.
is the Boosters Club.
Yeah.
And that is, this, I think pretty much the sole purpose of that is fundraising for supporting co-curriculars.
Right.
And particularly sports, and so they do things like the ski and snowboard swap. And,
Right.
raise money through those activities,
Yeah.
and they give scholarships.
Cause I couldn't remember, I know our kids have like, you know, track and field, so there really wasn't like a cost for that, and our kids did skiing and I couldn't recall. But anyway, so that was.
Please, let's let Ally answer.
Students can also go to boosters and like present to them for funding as well. So there's like a bunch of different ways to do that. There's always gonna be costs associated with like, if you want the new hockey stick, that kind of thing. Yeah. There's also a lot of fundraising. Like I know band does a fundraiser. I know like the Christmas tree fundraiser was for band. That kind of thing. So-
Cause I'm just seeing like some of the accounts payables are, you know, we're buying a new tuba, or there's new gear for this or that. So I was just wondering, because we're just seeing the negative, we're not seeing
Right,
anything
'cause as they
that's coming
fundraise,
back into the
They
system.
still have to write the check from here.
Right,
That's,
right.
that's why you're seeing.
Yeah, so I was just thinking also along that same line of the roll up. That, you know, if there's any way to understand what are those offsets, you know, I think would also be helpful, right? And then my last question. that
By
I had-
offset, you mean if some money comes in for booster,
Right.
it goes out through this?
Right. Yeah.
Like you don't see you're not seeing the accounts and how much.
Yeah, I don't know.
They're not seeing it.
You mean like if
The
they're
revenue.
Yeah, if they make
Yeah.
The revenue. I'm like the
$20,000
Yeah.
or something, but then they write a check out, you're not seeing that money coming in.
Yeah, that, but they're not our, they're not our.
Right.
organization.
And I do want to point out that being a parent of kids who are in sports and other activities, they also, all the people who run those are very cognizant of how much money they're asking, and there are always emails that say, if you cannot afford this for your child, let us know and we will figure out how to get it for you. So no one's required. I mean, of course, that's uncomfortable and some people won't come forward, but I know it's out there that really you should not have to pay for your kid to have the same.
Absolutely, and I think that's so important, like I wanna preface that too, that I believe that is so important that everyone has the opportunity to participate. I'm just looking at this as information that's going out to the community, because these were all attached in school board information. And if people are just seeing deduction, but you're not seeing, hey,
That-
there's
what-
monies that are coming in from fundraisers, from Christmas trees, from the boosters, I mean, I've been to booster, and donating on auction things. I mean, probably put out a lot of
But
hundreds.
what goes out to the public and what you all see are two different things.
Right,
So they are not seeing spent,
yeah,
4 checks going to the salt distributor, like
Yeah.
that is only board privilege.
oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
they see what's in the agenda is just that summary of X dollars for payroll,
Oh, right,
Y
right, yeah,
dollars
right
for
there.
that,
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I see.
Yeah, that's all the public sees.
Yeah. So, okay, my last question on EP. So sorry.
Well, there's no rush.
Sorry,
I know,
last
Finance
question.
I
is
know,
our
I
job.
feel like with this is, we are in an area that's not our job is what I'm,
Oh, I'm
Well-
just asking questions though.
I know, but
That is.
We have an important role as
I know,
a,
but
the final check.
I just think that okay, I've been on here for 4 years, I've heard these questions more than once, so go ahead.
Okay. Snowboard ski passes for coaches. Just curious. Is that something that typically happens, that's the school covers? Because I guess my question there was, if someone were to stop being a coach, that is non-transferable. So I was just curious around that. That's my last.
I
last
had the
question.
same question. I know exactly what you're referring to. I don't know what the answer is. I think if you raise your hand and say, I'd like to be the coach of the snowboarding club, then we would provide, if you raise your hand to say, I want to be the coach of the track team, we would provide you what you need to be the coach, right? So if you said, I want to be the coach of the snowboard team, then we would then provide you. I can't make you stand in the parking lot to coach the kids that are on the slopes, right? That's
Okay.
and I will tell you, like, there's so many weeds to get into. By the time it crosses my desk, I'm like,
Just take the idea of somebody said.
And it's not a season pass,
It's what?
it's not a season pass, so if it's still going the same way it was, the boosters, for example, in that ski slope. They divvy that up for all winter sports. And that is the budget for race fees. For the passes and so on. They're arranged as a part of the race, specifically within the race fee, and then they usually throw in 1 or 2 coach lift tickets for that day, so. Nobody was ever getting a season's pass that, they could go and they could ski on Saturday or whatever, if that's related.
Then I would, just say that this is, I think it is a little weedy, and what you have is a high-level executive team, and we're asking questions that frankly, we don't know the answers to. I think these are great questions to send us to get answers.
Okay.
So I don't want us to say anything that's wrong.
right.
But I don't know the answer to this question.
And I also would say that one of the things that we're working on is putting together a new financial handbook that will be in place before the beginning of the next school year, so that all of the team across the district knows, here are the things that I can buy, here's the process of which I buy the thing or get reimbursed for the thing. And I suspect that there will be a lot of changes from what the current practice is to what the new and improved practice will.
Okay. Okay.
But, and I just wanted to say that at least my opinion about this is that as board members, if you see something, say something, right? Like, so we shouldn't self-gel, yeah. So, it is, it can be, we can get too far into the weeds, but if you smell something.
And it may be
part of our job.
helpful for you, I don't know exactly when you folks are getting your materials or reading them, but it may be helpful if you have questions. For us to talk about them offline, just because sometimes it does get a little.
Yeah,
Maybe uncomfortable
absolutely.
in public forum.
Yeah, for sure. That's
Yeah.
fine.
Is there any other questions? Or do we have consent to approve the minutes, the accounts payables and the payroll warrant?
Thank you very much.
Okay, all right, well then those pass by consent. Is there any discussion of the AP voucher checks to the Howard Center? I would entertain a motion to approve the AP voucher checks to the Howard Center in the amount of $131,398.93.
I'll move.
Laura moves,
Okay.
Dan seconds, any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. So at this point, we have two remaining agenda items. Setting the agenda for the March 11th school board work session and reviewing future agenda items. So my question on the March 11th school board work session is that a regular meeting? It appears to not, it appears to be a special school board meeting. And so I'm assuming that it's on there only if we don't pass the budget. So we.
That's what I thought it was for, if we had to come back.
That's what I thought it was, so.
Okay, so would the board be okay with just saying we're not gonna have a meeting on March 11th? Does anybody want to advocate for March 11th meeting?
Laura?
I stay here till like midnight.
Okay. Okay, so it sounds like the decision on that is that we're gonna not have a March 11th, we're not gonna warn a March 11th meeting. And then reviewing future agenda items, I don't think I actually have the March 18th agenda drafted yet.
She did send it to us.
Yeah,
It's,
Carolina sent. The 18th.
no, the 18th, yeah, it's, 218, I'm sorry, I lied. It's that was 218.
Yes, I don't think we
We don't have it, Shannon.
Okay, okay. So, one thing I know we were talking about earlier in this meeting was, considering a committee for advocacy, given the number of legislative issues that are relevant to the district. Is that something that we want to either discuss or potentially take action on at the next meeting? I would support the idea at least of discussing advocacy, because and then from there we could consider, charging the committee. So people object to us putting the discussion of legislative advocacy on the agenda. Great, okay, so we'll do that. Are there any other things that people definitely want to see on the next agenda? I think another thing is the ends committee. If we want to have outside consultant, we should probably make our recommendation and discuss that at the next meeting.
Yeah, so we should meet before and have that.
Right, so we'll have an agenda item to update from the ends committee.
Is there anything else that we need to put on our website? Because I did see the scorecard, which looks fantastic. I don't know if you want to pull that up real quick and show, because I just happened to see that and I really like seeing it on the school board website. So you can see the scorecard there that has our. I could see expanding, I just sent you a message. I could see expanding and having a separate one where we were just talking about like the budgets and the aggregates of information. I could see having something like that. Also, but just as an idea for potentially another committee is taking a look at our website and seeing if there's any enhancements that we could make to tighten up and have information visible for people so that they can, get in and be able to find things and just have some.
And so are you talking about the, just the school board website or the whole district?
Just the school board.
Just the school board website.
Our stuff. Yeah.
So I think having a discussion of website update, school board website control and updates is not a bad idea.
I think that's a great idea. Yeah, I had disappeared, but I had both those things in my notes for things to talk about at some point. How to find monitoring reports. Right now they're buried in agendas. So if we're gonna put the scorecard.
Although now they're linked from the scorecard.
Oh, you did link it. Okay.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Excellent. I didn't notice that. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's where we need to have that stuff is that it's front and center. And I'm just thinking, what other things do we want to have here? And as we were just talking about budgets, I was thinking that would be another one that would be great to have. If you could have here's what your buckets are and here's.
Well, let's discuss it. I think the
Yeah.
point is, there's a lot to
There's a lot
discuss.
to discuss.
So, and we all, yeah, okay, so, those three agenda items, update from the ends committee. Discussion of advocacy and the discussion of school board website page. Not like that.
There'll be a monitoring report, Dean Marie's, we will be here for the monitoring report.
225 was on the agenda for.
Yeah. Well, you know what, and that's actually a good, you know, you said you're interested in reducing the reporting burden on the finance team. That seems like something we should talk about sooner rather than later, because the longer that you guys have to keep producing those excessive reports.
Yeah, well, this is the second one, right? She's in charge of two. They did one last month and they're doing this one this month. And I think it'll happen organically. But I would like them to give this.
Oh, yeah, for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
And to be clear, we don't need to, all I'm saying is, should we, at our next meeting, should we discuss the idea of reducing the reporting burden?
Or changing it
Mhm.
to the point of a monthly update to you all, you know, that is more fine tuned or like finer detail than what a monitoring report would be.
So does the board want to talk about that at our next meeting? And we'll obviously look at the agenda, and if it's getting too big, we'll cut some stuff, move some stuff around, but. So it sounds like there's four potential items that we'll be adding to the agenda for the March 18th meeting.
And do we need to consider too, not that I want this on the agenda, but in our parking lot, the idea of even a retreat, because we need to do some VSBA onboarding, right? For policy governance training and things of that nature.
I wonder if we can handle that, we're all wisdom veterans, except for a year on the board, just handle that.
I mean, it could be, but I know we went through it. I think there's some that did not go through it. If we can transfer that. I don't know what your knowledge is with policy governance, probably pretty good, but. You know. Okay, yeah.
There's a,
I think there's value in a board retreat.
Yeah.
An annual board retreat. I know we have one in January, but I think there's one we're supposed to talk about for the summer. I think there's great value.
So,
SBA is like a new member board.
Yeah.
Luncheon tomorrow, and I signed up for it, so I'll see what they have to say, but yeah, but I mean, I'm familiar, but I do think that like a formal training.
so should we? So what I'll do is I'll send out a calendar link for people to look at board retreat dates. Cause it's not gonna be in the calendar of board meetings that we just approved. So, okay, so I'll take that as a.
That would be a good opportunity too, to do some of even the updates for, or when, you know, because sometimes these meetings, we don't want them to grow too big, so if we can break it out and have updates from the committees or something, would be a great opportunity for your retreat also. I want to do over in Snowflake County.
Last question,
Mhm.
when are we talking a retreat? Are we talking like in the next month or the next 3 months? What do you think? Jeff?
I mean, it looks like they've been done in July in the past.
Oh, I thought we were suggesting another earlier retreat in addition to the July
Oh.
retreat. Is that
I
not?
was
New
thinking in the
retreats
next
you-
3 months or so
Yeah.
would not be a bad
The one
idea.
is,
I'm wondering, could we just put the list of what the the independent training with the 8 modules?
Yeah, does anybody want to advocate for a board retreat in advance of the board retreat in the summer?
I don't think you need multiple board retreats. I think.
I hear that, yeah, I just wonder if
One-
anybody wants to positively advocate for it. It's, okay, so it sounds like nobody's advocating for a new board retreat, and we're gonna work with Julissa to provide whatever. Great. Any other final thoughts on agenda, scheduling issues? All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Dan, motion, Laura, second, any discussion? All those in favor? All right, we're adjourned.
signatures.